You've heard the concepts of first mover advantage, success loves speed, and time is money, and we gotta act. Minimum viable product, right? You've heard all these ideas, yet people get kind of stuck. Hello, how's it going? Brian Bowman here, and today I want to talk about mental models for business. This is one of my favorite mental models, and if you apply this, this will be one of those that will give you results very quickly, and it's also going to allow you to get a massive competitive advantage. So I'm excited to share this with you, and I think you're really going to like it. But before we get started, I do have a question for you, and it's a real question that I want to ask you. Do you consider yourself open-minded? Because there are two types of people that are going to hear what I'm going to talk about today. And one type of person will hear it and they'll say, wow, that's pretty cool. That makes sense. Or I could see how that would work. And will kind of go about their day and not do much with it. And then there's the other type of person who's going to hear it and they're actually going to put it into action. They realize nothing happens until something moves. They're going to believe it. They're going to put it into action and they're going to make it a part of their thought process. And that's who I want you to be. And that's how I really would encourage you to be. And I would ask you to consider what I'm going to talk about and look for ways, even today, how can you apply this model in your business? So what I want to talk about today is called Occam's razor. And it's been around for a long time. It's been used by scientists and philosophers, but it's very, very applicable in business. And the way the model goes, or the idea goes, is that among competing hypotheses, the one with the fewest assumptions should be selected. So in other words, the simplest solution is correct. Now, there's a really famous quote by Albert Einstein. I love it. I'm sure I've shared it in the past at some point. And he says, everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. And that's like very, very powerful, because I think we all intuitively understand this whole idea, right? You've heard the concepts of first mover advantage and success loves speed, and time is money, and we gotta act. Minimum viable product, right? You've heard all these ideas. Yet people get kind of stuck. And I think there's a lot of elegance and so many things that Einstein, if you read his biography, it's amazing. The Isaacson biography, I can't recommend it enough. And in the biography, you realize that he's always looking for the simplest solution. Think of E equals MC squared, right? It's everything should be boiled down to the simplest possible solution, but not simpler. And I think that's where we get stuck, especially as entrepreneurs that in our business, we really care about our product, right? We're passionate about what we're doing. We want to make an impact. We're selling physical products, but we know there's a desired result, or there's a big idea, that the big impact we're trying to make, and it can be tough to sort of pull the trigger and take action. And some might call it perfectionism, but a lot of times it's just that we want it to be right. We actually want it to have the desired effect, and we want it to work, right? So the idea is, like, what path do we choose then? Because we understand we got to act, we got to move fast, but what path do we choose? And we always want to choose the path that is as simple as possible, because that is always the right answer, but not any simpler than it should be. So we always want to choose whatever is as simple as possible, but not simpler. And I'll give you some examples of what I mean. So in a very practical application, what I'm talking about is in your business, for example, in your physical products business, your e-commerce business, in whatever business you have, but particularly in e-commerce, because I've seen this over and over and over again with e-commerce brand owners, is you want to choose the funnel or the sales process that is as simple as possible, yet still effective. And I have seen a lot of entrepreneurs really complicate this process. A lot of brand owners really complicate this. I had a client once, and we were building out a funnel, or he was building out a funnel. If you're not familiar with a funnel, it's basically a series of like pages, right? Where people they buy, and then there's other products that are made available to them through the process as they're buying. And it was this super complicated, like 27 steps with upsells, downsells. There was options and links and surveys, and it looked amazing, right? Generally, we tend to bias things that are more complex. If you're given one solution that's really simple and another solution that's very complex, there's a human bias to think that the more complex one must be better. And again, this might not seem like, you might be like, oh, I'm not sure, but keep an eye out for this, because once you're aware, you'll start to see these biases. And you'll start to see it in other people. Like people will naturally gravitate, or they'll not gravitate towards, they'll just think that there's more validity in the more complicated thing, when the answer is typically the complete opposite of that. The correct solution is usually the simplest, but again, not simpler than it needs to be, but the simplest. So all of those steps, the 27 steps, the upsells, the surveys, the clicks, the buttons, it sounds really cool. Like that's going to be amazing. That's totally going to work, right? Well, usually that option flops. That sales process flops. Typically the simplest thing is you have a very simple structure to the funnel, or you send the traffic to a product page with, a few things that conversion elements, right? Because we can't just send them to an order page with a big button that says buy, right? That would be too simple. So we need it to be as simple as possible, yet still effective. And that will typically be the best answer. That will be the right solution. So there are conversion elements we need that have to be there. However, we only need the minimum, essentially like the minimum effective dose. That's what we're looking for. So in any case, so with this client, it was this whole thing. We like stripped the whole thing down. We ended up testing it, right? Because another rule is always test. You have to live by that. But we ended up testing it, and the simpler option, which was basically 4 pages as opposed to 27, way out converted the other. Even though the other one seemed like, wow, that should really work because it was so detailed, so segmented. But the simplest option wins and typically continues to win. There typically isn't a better option, and that's why we have controls. That's why in your business, in your sales process, you should always have a control for your headlines, for your copy, for your images, for whatever you do. There's a baseline control. We have a control headline that we always test against every other headline we use, because that's the simplest option that still retains maximum effectiveness, right? So it's typically very hard to beat that. So hopefully that's making sense. So we want the simplest option, but not any simpler. And why does this work? And this is a critical question. We always want to ask why. Like, why does this idea of this Occam's razor, the simplest is usually the best solution in our business? Why does that work? Well, one, it's easier to fix if it breaks. When that option where the client had 27 different things that could have happened, if that thing breaks, and by the way, remember, we have software that's connecting all of this and things are linking up and there's buttons. If that thing breaks, it's very hard to figure out where it broke. It's very hard to optimize. And there's so many different spots. It's its own thing, right? Like we have to put all this attention on this one thing just to see if we can fix it when it breaks. Like it needs its own team just to manage this super complicated sales process. Whereas the simple one, we can very quickly identify, oh, well, there's only 4 or 5 spots this thing can break. So let's keep an eye on all of them, right? And if it's, it's very simple to see like, okay, this is good. Clearly it's broken here. And then it's simple to fix. So that's one reason. And probably the biggest is that it's faster to implement and to iterate. So remember, everything in business is an iterative process, right? We want to implement right away, and that's why we have an idea of an MVP, a minimum viable product. We want to hit the market. Success loves speed, money loves speed, progress loves speed, everything loves speed. We want to move fast, and we'll figure it out along the way. When you get your iPhone, right? That is the definition of launching an imperfect product. It's called a software update. And they're like, oh, we've made it better. No, they're fixing bugs because they just got the thing out and then charged you for it, right? You already paid for the thing, and then they just shoot a software update up there. And if we could start giving ourselves permission to just go ahead, execute, get out there, choose what we believe is the simplest yet effective solution, then we can get out there, implement, and if we do need to tweak anything, it's very easy to fix. And we can iterate and come up with a better solution very, very quickly. If we have 27 different steps and this super complicated process, it becomes very, very difficult to fix and to ever improve it, if it even needs improvement. And that's the beauty of this mental model in your business of Occam's razor, of picking the simplest solution for whatever problem you're looking at. And in this context, I'm really talking about your funnel or your sales process, but this can apply to anything in your business when you're kind of comparing options. So one thing that people ask is, well, is this just an MVP, a minimum viable product? It sounds like the same thing, right? It sounds like it's just another way to say minimum viable product. Well, yes and no, because yes, it may be the minimum viable product in that it's the quickest thing to get to market and to start implementing, to start making sales, to start iterating. However, the difference between a minimum viable product and this idea of choosing the simplest solution is a minimum viable product, you launch with the idea that you are going to improve it, right? If your goal is to build a Ferrari in your business, in your product, then the minimum viable product isn't a windshield and a hood and a trunk, right? It doesn't get anyone anywhere. A minimum viable product is a skateboard, and we can put, we could put better tires on it. We could put a handlebar on it, and now it's like a scooter, right? And then we can put doors on it and an engine, and we can make it into a Ferrari. But the minimum viable product at least gets us to point A to point B. But in no way could we say a skateboard's going to beat a Ferrari, right? It's just, there's no contest, but at least they're both effective. And that's why a minimum viable product is so powerful. But using this mental model, this Occam's razor in your business, you may not find a better solution. So that's the big difference, is that simplest solution that is still effective, that is no simpler than it needs to be, yet it is the simplest, may always be the best option. And that's why it's so powerful. So while an MVP is launched with the intention of it being improved, and there will always be a better solution, we're just getting it to market, using this mental model in your business of choosing the simplest solution that's still effective may never be able to be beat. The control may always be the winner. And that's why it continues to be crowned the champion, and it keeps winning no matter what alternatives you show against it or you test against it. The control always keeps winning because it is the simplest solution, yet no simpler than it needs to be. So more than anything, I want you to win. I want you to apply this. I want you to take your business to another level. If you're listening to this, you're a passionate brand owner. You're someone who really cares. You want to make an impact. You also want to make income, but you want to do something that matters. And the quickest way for you to do that through your physical products, so the information you put out through the tribe that you're leading, is for you to get out there to test quickly. But always look, when you're looking at solutions, the complicated solution is usually the wrong answer. Choose the simplest one that still gets the job done, and you'll be surprised how many times that's going to work. You're going to find out a lot faster, and you're going to be able to actually get out there and act. And as we know, nothing happens until something moves. So more than anything, it's about taking massive action and getting out there. But a lot of times, if you pick the simplest solution, that'll be the winner every single time. So go, get after it, get to work, and make sure you implement this. And I will talk to you next time. All right, bye.